it's me, Aaron, Professor Thorgy, your guide to all things geeky, and welcome to another episode of Comic Class, the show every single week on this channel where we just geek out about comic books, and after 2 weeks, we are still super pumped about Civil War. No, not that one. Not that one ever. No. I have very low expectations for that book. Anywho, we are still super excited about Civil War the movie. That film was so good that we are still talking about here on Comic Class. Last week we celebrated by giving you the top 10 characters who might appear in a Black Panther film. However, he's not the only character who made his Marvel Cinematic debut in Civil War and also ended up stealing the show. Spider-Man also swung in there, and we are all very much looking forward to his new film. So today, I'm going to give you the top 10 villains who might appear in Spider-Man Homecoming. Now, before we begin, like with any of my top 10s, there are some ground rules. And the ground rules for this episode is that these have to be villains who have not appeared in a previous Spider-Man film. We still don't know who this villain is going to be, but they did come out and confirm it will be a villain who we have not seen before in a previous Spider-Man film. So in other words, no Green Goblin, no Dr. Octopus, no Sandman, no Venom, no Lizard, no Electro, no whatever that other weird second Green Goblin was. Oh my god, that one was so bad. And no Rhino. But everyone else is on the table except for villains who would require those previous villains to exist in order for them to make sense. In other words, no Carnage. Nothing against Carnage, but he doesn't make sense in a movie unless you have already had Venom appear in a previous movie. So, aside from all of them, everyone else is on the table. Let's do it.
At number 10, Chameleon. It would be hard for me to picture Chameleon being the big bad villain who goes hand to hand with Spidey at the end of the movie. However, I can totally see him being a minor villain who ends up stealing information for the big villain, or impersonates Spider-Man to get the public against him, and serves as the inspiration for why J. Jonah Jameson hates Spidey in the first place. So, even though the Chameleon doesn't sound like a big villain, I could still see him playing an important role in this movie. Number 9, the Jackal. Just hearing the name Jackal makes a certain generation of Spider-Man fans cringe. He was responsible for the Clone Saga after all, which many people consider to be one of the worst storylines Spidey or Marvel has ever had. However, many good things did eventually come out of that event, such as the Scarlet Spider, and whether you liked it or not, you have to admit, very few villains have really screwed with Spider-Man's life more than the Jackal. He tore his life apart for years, and sure, his story and his motivations might be a little bit too weird and a bit too much to bring out in the first movie, but you could always have Miles Warren, his secret identity, as Peter's professor in the first film, and then slowly start to set up his character for a later movie. Number 8, the Beetle. Beetle from the regular Marvel universe might be a bit of a joke. However, in the Ultimate Universe, which a lot of Marvel movies draw inspiration from, he was a far more sophisticated, skilled, and heavily armored villain who actually proved to be a real threat. Plus, we've heard that Iron Man will be appearing in the next Spider-Man film, so I can totally see the Beetle stealing tech from Stark Industries, or Peter calling up his new mentor figure and asking him for advice on dealing with an armored assailant. Number 7, the Superior Foes. No, you heard me correctly, I said the Superior Foes. But they're a bunch of jokes, you might be saying. And you're right, the Superior Foes of Spider-Man was one of the best comics I've read in the last decade. It was a hilarious team book starring Spider-Man's lamest villains who tried to pull off heists without getting caught or stabbing each other in the back. So, why do I want them in this movie? Hey, I didn't say I wanted them as the main villain, I just want them to be a villain in the movie, and I think a great way to expand Spider-Man's world and cast, as well as a way to show off his character personality and skill, would be to just give Spidey a group of incompetent joke villains for him to take down right at the start of the movie. You have Spidey swing in, make fun of what they're wearing, then web them up, and bam, you've introduced our favorite hero all over again. Plus, if they were a hit, you could keep bringing them back for later films just as a running gag about how they're always getting their butts handed to them. Not every villain in the Marvel Cinematic Universe has to be a giant world-destroying villain. Some of them are allowed to be jokes. Number 6, the Vulture. The Vulture is one of Spider-Man's oldest enemies, no pun intended, and he could actually serve a variety of roles as the villain in this movie. He could suit up in his winged costume and face Spider-Man in combat, Or he could be the evil old rich guy who funds another villain and uses his power and influence to try and tear Spider-Man's life apart without ever putting a costume on in the first place. Plus, I don't know if you've noticed this, but the Marvel Cinematic Universe kinda has a thing for evil bald businessmen who build power suits. Number 5, the SpiderSlayers. One of the things that makes Spider-Man different from many of the other heroes that we've seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is that people distrust him. People view him as a menace and as a threat. And if they really wanted to explore that in this film, I could see them having J. Jonah Jameson or some other authority figure create the SpiderSlayers to fight him. You could create a wide variety of SpiderSlayers, each with their own unique design, purpose, and way of fighting, in order to show Spider-Man having to actually think through these battles, to actually explore how he fights, not just showing him punching things, but actually seeing him have to think his way through each of these different battles, and all the while allowing him to show off his wide variety of powers. Plus, just thinking about this from a business point of view, do you know how many toys you could sell if you made the SpiderSlayers the villain? The Lego tie-in practically designs itself. Literally. Number 4, Kraven the Hunter. Not only is Kraven one of the most well-known Spider-Man villains, and one of the few villains who actually has defeated him, but if they wanted to put him in the second movie, there's a perfect opportunity to tease him ahead of time to the audience. Remember last week when I counted down the top 10 villains who could appear in the Black Panther film? I said I could see Kraven the Hunter popping up in that movie as a cameo, just as a tracker or hunter who leads the main villain to Wakanda. So imagine if they did that, and then the post-credits scene was him reading about Spider-Man in the paper or seeing him on TV. It would be a really easy and natural way to insert him into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and a simple way to get people excited for him and Spider-Man to go head-to-head. Number 3, the Hobgoblin. Let's be honest, Spider-Man needs to fight a goblin. He and the goblins have a long-running rivalry. Heck, Spider-Man fighting a goblin is practically part of his mythos at this point. But since we're not going to get the Green Goblin, at least not yet, you could bring in the Hobgoblin. And I know he was a crime boss who discovered the old Green Goblin equipment after Osborn died. Hold on, I'm sorry, you can't see me making finger quotes from here. When Osborn died, but that doesn't mean you have to go that route in the movie. Remember, in the old Spider-Man cartoon, he actually came first. He was a mercenary who forced Norman Osborn to build equipment for him, and then later on, Norman Osborn took that same equipment and turned himself into the Green Goblin. So, if you decide to go that route for the movies, then not only would we get Hobgoblin, but it would be a really easy way to set up the Green Goblin for a later film. Number 2, Mysterio. Not only is Mysterio probably the most well-known villain on this list, as well as being a fan favorite, I mean, who can't love that giant fishbowl, but he would also provide an enemy unlike anything we've seen so far in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Almost every villain that we've seen so far in these movies fight hand-to-hand, or laser blast to laser blast, you know what I mean. The final fight always comes down to a contest of strength and skill. Mysterio is the master of illusions. He would be a villain you can't punch. He would be a villain who would fight Spider-Man mentally. Maybe even bring up tragic memories or his worst fears, fighting him on an emotional level rather than physical. So this would be a truly unique battle that would delve into Peter's psyche rather than just showing off his physical strength. And at number 1, Morland. Not only was Morland one of the most stunning villains to be introduced to the Spider-Man mythos in recent years, with his appearance being considered by many to be one of the best storylines in Spider-Man's history, but also Morland represents something bigger. It represents a change to Spider-Man's origin. You see, Spider-Man had always been considered to be a science-based character, with his powers coming from a science experiment that went wrong. However, when Morland was introduced, it revealed he was actually connected to something mystical. He was actually connected to spider totems and the web of life itself. Which is actually kind of smart because it finally explained what the heck spider sense is. But the reason I bring this up is because Marvel is going to want to do something to make their Spider-Man stand out from all the other ones. Other than just, being good. And they said that they're not going to show his origin again, which is smart because we've all seen it before, but at the same time, you do need to do something to remind the newer audience of who he is and where his powers come from. So, if he learned that his powers were different from what he originally thought, it would be a very simple way for them to turn to the audience and go, yeah, if you didn't know, here's the deal on Spider-Man, and if you did know, you were wrong. Here's the real deal on Spider-Man. So, not only would Morland prove to be one of the toughest opponents Spider-Man has ever faced in a movie, but he would also help to make this Spider-Man stand out from its previous incarnations, and because of that, he's my #1 pick for the villain in Spider-Man Homecoming. But that's just me. Let me know in the comments down below which new villain you want to see in Homecoming. Also, if you like this video, then make sure that you hit that subscribe button. We do comic book videos every single week, as well as stuff about video games, movies, and everything geeky on this channel. Also, hit that thumb up button and share this all around the web. It helps this channel to grow, and I appreciate every single person out there who has been doing it. Thank you all so much. Alright everyone, thanks again for watching, and make sure you come back next time. Bye!